On a quiet Sunday in September 1957, the ground in the Ural Mountains shook with a force that felt like the end of the world. A massive orange-red cloud surged into the sky, glowing with an eerie, unnatural light. But this wasn't a nuclear test. It was a disaster so catastrophic that the Soviet Union would spend the next 30 years pretending it never happened. This is the story of the Kyshtym Disaster, the worst nuclear accident you probably never heard of. The explosion happened at the Mayak plutonium plant, located in the secret city of Chelyabinsk 65. The city didn't exist on any map. It was a ghost town dedicated to producing the fuel for the Soviet nuclear arsenal, because the race for the bomb was so frantic. Safety was an afterthought. For years, they had been dumping high-level radioactive waste directly into the nearby Teka River, poisoning entire villages downstream. But the real catastrophe was brewing underground. A massive storage tank, filled with 80 tons of highly radioactive liquid waste, had a faulty cooling system. The temperature rose, the liquid evaporated. And on September 29th, the tank exploded with the force of nearly 100 tons of TNT. A plume of deadly isotopes, strontium-90 and cesium-137, was thrown a mile into the air. The wind carried this invisible poison across a region the size of New Jersey. Over 270,000 people lived in the path of that cloud. They were farmers, factory workers, often children, and they were told nothing. For days, the Soviet government stayed silent. People in the affected villages started getting sick. Their hair fell out. Their skin turned gray. Their livestock died in the fields. Finally, the military arrived, but they didn't come to help. They came to evacuate. Thousands of people were forced to leave their homes with only the clothes on their backs. Their houses were bulldozed, their belongings buried, and their very history erased. The area became known as the East Ural Radioactive Trace. It was a dead zone, a poisoned landscape where nothing could live or grow for centuries. And yet the Kremlin continued to deny everything. When Western intelligence agencies picked up hints of the disaster, the Soviets dismissed it as anti-Soviet propaganda. It wasn't until 1976, nearly 20 years later, that a Soviet biologist named Boris Medvedev, who had defected to the West, finally revealed the truth. Even then, many Western scientists didn't believe him. They couldn't imagine a disaster of that scale being kept secret for so long. The Kyshtym disaster was a precursor to Chernobyl, but in many ways it was more chilling. It showed a regime so obsessed with secrecy and power that it was willing to sacrifice its own people and poison its own land rather than admit a mistake. It was a world where the state's secrets were worth more than human lives. Today, the Mayak plant is still there. The secret city of Ozersk is still there. And the people who survived the disaster are still fighting for recognition and compensation. They are the living witnesses to a tragedy that was buried under layers of lies and concrete. But how did the Soviets get the technology to build these plants in the first place? It wasn't just through their own research. They had help from the inside. In our next video, we're going to meet the man who walked through the most secure facility in America and walked out with the blueprints for the atomic bomb, the ultimate spy.